Hey, what's up, everybody? And finally, welcome back to another episode of UFC Roundup. I'm Paul Felder with Michael Chiesa. And Michael, it's that time. Fight news is here, my friend. Please fill us in. What's going on? And unfortunately, I know who you're fighting. So if anybody at home doesn't, let them know.
November 20th, fighting your boy Sean Brady. Really tough up-and-comer, former welterweight champion of CFFC. Just a tough up-and-coming guy. You know, I fought the grizzled vets, the former champs. It's time to test myself against some of that. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm not the only one that's been busy. You've been out running amok all over the nation, doing triathlons, swimming, biking. You're a madman. Tell us about the races you've been doing.
I've been doing some triathlons. I had a 70.3 in Atlantic City. As you can see from the photo there, my whole family, a couple of buddies came out, my uncle. Really good race. You know, the goal for that one, I really just wanted to push it, and I did. I got some really fast numbers. I had my first wreck on my bike, but thank God everything was fine. I was okay other than some road rash and things like that. Got on my bike, had my best bike split, had my best half marathon. I ran a 138 Ricci. What was it? 138, 137, something like that. But, like a 720 something pace for 13.1 miles. Extremely happy. The following week, I actually turned it right back around and did an Olympic distance this past Saturday where I came in third place overall. Much smaller group, but it was with French Creek Racing and some of the guys that I get to train with locally. So that one was brutal. That was quite the elevation, almost 2,000 feet of elevation on like a 22.5-mile course on the bike. Just a lot of fun, man. Taking a little break now, get back into MMA a little bit. And eventually down the line be getting into season 2 of Hacks, the HBO show, who just killed it at the Emmys. So big shout out to all the people involved in Hacks too. And my man, Carl Clemens Hopkins, who was nominated for an Emmy, and somebody I went to school with who's absolutely just crushing the game in the world of entertainment right now.
You're crushing the game, Paul. Look at this guy. I mean, geez, getting third place at triathlons, getting ready for another TV series. I mean, you can fight, you're fast, you're athletic, you're an actor. Paul Felder, you can do it all, man.
I know, but I can do it all. You can do it all, Michael, but we are here to talk 266. We got another big pay-per-view. It's been a while. We've been waiting for these pay-per-views. We're back home base, T-Mobile Arena. We got 2 title fights, not to mention we got a Diaz brother, Nick Diaz, the older brother, making his return. But let's start at the marquee, and we got Volkanovski, Ortega. There's been some bad blood. Both these guys coached the Ultimate Fighter together, where it didn't seem like there was going to be any of this animosity. You got Volkanovski, who's a pretty damn clear-cut good guy, right? Not a guy that likes to start a lot of beef, but there has been some turmoil that has started between these two. What are your thoughts on the fight? And what do you like about this one?
Well, I was actually there when the bad blood first started.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was there the first day it really kicked off. And Volkanovski really is just a good all-around guy. He was really there to coach. He was very serious. He's very punctual, very on time. Ortega was kind of having a little more fun with it, kind of flying by the seat of his pants more. And we saw how that played out through the season. I mean, the tremendous athletes, but at the end of the day, Team Volkanovski, they ended with a higher win ratio, I should say, compared to Ortega. But look, when you talk about the fight, that the Ultimate Fighter naturally always brings some type of animosity headed into a fight. You got to see the guy every single day, and then you start chipping at each other, and it makes it, for the people that watch the show, it makes the fight more interesting. But for the fighters, it makes it more interesting because there's just so much more built into that fight when you have to see that person every day. So that's the root of the animosity. But I think that it's a very competitive one. You hear Volkanovski say he doesn't have anything bad to say about Ortega. He just thinks he's little princess, or he gave him some little funny nickname.
Spoiled little brat, I believe he called him.
Yeah, and it's a good competitive rivalry. But that's why it's going to be headlining 266, and that's what makes this fight have that extra sprinkling of fun, because it's already a tremendous featherweight title fight.
Yeah, it is. It is a great featherweight title fight, and it was supposed to happen. So we've got that going for it. Then these guys get to coach the Ultimate Fighter, and it's got to be interesting, right? Because a couple of things can happen when you're coaching close to somebody like that. You can either start to like the guy and become buddies with him, which makes the fight interesting in a way that you guys still got to go out there and compete. or in this case where you see guys, they get on each other's nerves. It's not really that deep. Even Ortega said that, I believe, in the 266 buildup that I just watched the other day, the countdown. He's like, it's not that deep. There's a little bit of, tension there, but it's nothing. Like, these guys don't absolutely hate each other. But I can tell you this, Ortega wants his shot at that belt and he wants to be champion. And we've seen an evolution in his game, especially in that Korean zombie fight on the feet, right? He talks about it in that 266 countdown too, that he's really finally got the complete team around him and he's focused. He's treating himself not just like a fighter or somebody who's tough, but like an athlete. And you see him really focusing on that strength and conditioning and those fast twitch muscles that you need in the sport of mixed martial arts. And he's throwing things, Michael, like spinning elbows, more kicks. He's more of a Muay Thai style, whereas before with Ortega, we saw much more of a boxing approach. So I'm very curious. That's where I'm really interested to see how this title fight plays out. It's going to be on the feet because we know how Volkanovski is. He's a pressure demon out there. And when he's on the outside, likes to chew up the legs. So is he going to be able to close that distance? And when he does, is he going to level change? Is he worried about his neck? But you brought up a point when we were having a chat the other day before we filmed this, where some of the people that are in the Volkanovski camp, you don't think he's going to be too worried if this fight does and when it goes to the ground?
No, not at all, because he has a guy, for people that aren't familiar with like the jiu-jitsu, the sport jiu-jitsu world, there's a guy named Craig Jones who's absolutely one of the best guys. I mean, I have no shame saying when I rolled with Craig Jones, he had his way with me, to say the least. He's very elite at grappling, and that's a staple to Volkanovski's camp. And no disrespect to Brian Ortega, he's a tremendous jiu-jitsu competitor. That's his best strength when you talk about his fight game. We're talking about his stand-up and the evolution, but look, his bread and butter is submissions. His bread and butter is jiu-jitsu. That's why they call him T-City, which stands for Triangle City. But with Volkanovski having a guy like Craig Jones in his camp, Volkanovski likes to level change. He likes to go for the takedowns. And we saw in the Cub Swanson fight, Ortega's got a tremendous guillotine. He's got a tremendous amount of weapons in ways that he can attack your neck and attack submissions. But when you have a guy like Craig Jones, you get to train with day in and day out, you can put yourself in harm's way and figure out how you're going to negate those weapons that Brian Ortega possesses. And one thing that's interesting as well headed into this title fight, Paul, is both of these guys are coming off the layoffs. You got Volkanovski, 14-month layoff. You got Ortega coming off an 11-month layoff. I don't know how much it's going to affect Volk. I think that he trains properly to where he's not going to have I bet you if you ask Volkanovski, he's a guy that doesn't really believe in ring rust. But we saw how Ortega handled his layoff when he fought Korean Zombie, because I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head. Ricci, if you could tell me at some point, when was the time between Max Holloway and Korean Zombie? Yeah. I'll insert that when Ricci gets back to us. For people that don't know, we have a Jamie. We got Mike Ricci on the other side of these IFBs. But look, I'm interested to see how Volkanovski handles the layoff. We saw how Ortega did it. Let's see how Volkanovski does it.
Yeah. Interesting. The layoff, always interesting to see how two athletes handle that. But always going into these big mega fights, these title fights, there's always an X factor that we like to talk about. And both guys, who do you think has it in this fight? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What is that X factor? What's the one thing that you, Michael Chiesa, believe is going to be the game changer or the X factor in this fight between these two featherweights?
It's something that I just touched on. I think this X factor applies to Aleksandar Volkanovski, and I guess it does to Ortega as well, but it's the Craig Jones factor. We'll call it the Craig Jones factor. Like, how much of an improvement to Volkanovski's game is he going to have? Because you know as well as I do, Paul, when you're fighting a guy that is a specialist, you need that specialist coach. You need that guy that can help address those specialties. And, Volkanovski's got a tremendous team around him, but you got to bring in that specialist to address Ortega's weapons. So I'm interested to see how that X factor plays out. How does the Craig Jones being a part of Volkanovski's camp, how does it affect this fight? And who does it affect more? Does it affect Ortega? Does it affect Volkanovski? Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that he did that and brought that kind of a coach in there to work with on a daily basis. Gives you that confidence, which is what you need. And I think that the X factor, if I had to say it, I can't make a prediction, which I'm going to get from you in a second. But for me, I believe it's just going to be that pace and that grind that Volkanovski has, where he's so comfortable just being in that moment and grinding this fight to the bitter end. And you can call him a decision machine, which is something Ortega did. It doesn't matter. That means the man is ready to go out there for 25 minutes. Whereas you see somebody like Ortega, we've seen him go to decisions, but he relies on that ability to be able to get that choke, get that finish, and he kind of sits back in his own rhythm. With a 5-round fight against somebody like Volkanovski, that fight can get away from you really quickly if you do that. We've seen it in the Max Holloway fights with Ortega. He puts on a pace even more so than Max sometimes. And Max is a demon when it comes to putting on a pace. But Michael, it's time. You got to pick one. Who are you going with?
Well, before I pick, the great Mike Ricci got to me, and Ortega versus Max Holloway was December 2018. The Korean Zombie fight was October 2020. So we're talking almost a 2-year layoff.
Yeah.
So thanks to Mike Ricci. Prediction, man. I have a little bit of a bias. I do. Like I said, I went on the Ultimate Fighter. I went on Volk's team. My teammate Brady made the finals. Shout out to Brady Houston. But, I have a bias. But even when I take that out of the equation, I just still think that Volkanovski, he's already a hard guy to submit. You look at him. He's short. He's stocky. Yeah. He's not a guy. There's not a lot to grab onto. He's not long. He doesn't have a long neck. He's very stout. He's already hard to submit as it is. And I just think that while Ortega has made these vast improvements to his stand-up, I just think the way Volk applies pressure makes anybody and everybody uncomfortable. It's really, really hard to deal with. So I just think that the pressure, the Craig Jones effect, the frame, I just think that Volkanovski's got more things going for him in this fight. So I'm taking Volkanovski, and I'm taking him by decision.
By decision. I was just going to say, I mean, I can't make predictions, but I do see that as well. I think that these guys will fight into that 5th round for sure. Even though Volk has said he would really like to go out there and finish him, I know he's kind of wants to make a point, but I just think both guys are resilient. They're super tough, and they want it pretty bad. So I see a 5-rounder coming that way. In the co-main event, Valentina, she's back. I mean, this girl is bad, bro. What does Lauren Murphy bring to the table in this one? Does she have the ability? Is it too soon? This whole division is unfortunately getting shoved to the front of the line. Like, all right, you're up next. You get to fight Valentina. Congratulations. Whereas sometimes it's that division right now in the UFC where I think a lot of people are going, geez, do I want this title fight yet? Am I ready for this? What do you think?
Well, the one thing that's nice, that Lauren Murphy has going for headed into this fight, she's got a nice 5-fight win streak in her back pocket.
Sure.
And we've seen a lot when you have dominant champions like Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko. You don't need a 5-fight win streak to get to the title fight, because like you said, no one's really clamoring to fight these dominant champions. So it's kind of the person that can get a win or two and is willing to throw their hand up and say, hey, put me in, coach, I'm ready. But Lauren, I mean, she's just amassed this nice 5-fight win streak, and she's been calling her shot for the last few fights. The last few times she's got on that microphone, she's asking for the champion. She's very adamant that she thinks she has what it takes to go out there and dethrone the champion. And she's tough. She's big for the weight class. And I think that most importantly, when you talk about Valentina Shevchenko, you talk about the technical prowess and her ability she can fight to her strengths, with just primarily kickboxing. She's shown she has submissions and good top side offense. Like when she crucifixed Caitlin Kagan, just so much, there's so many layers to her game. It's going to take a competitor with a lot of belief in themselves to go out there and put it on the champion. So I think that Lauren Murphy's best thing she has going for in this fight is that belief and that confidence. And I hate to say it, it's a tall mountain to climb for. I hate to it's when you see what Valentina has done, it's really hard to sell it, because when Valentina gets defeated, if she gets defeated, it's going to be one of the biggest upsets in the sport. So it doesn't matter who it is. Unfortunately, it's going to take that type of performance, a shock the world performance, to beat a champion like Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, right? We all know it. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. We're talking about a dominant champion in Valentina Shevchenko that everybody is kind of scared of. I've made jokes in the past where I'd be a little bit worried if I had to get in the octagon with Valentina. She's bad, man. She's a sniper out there. She's fast. And that's the issue, right? And we're going to talk about X factors again. And I think the X factor, and we talked a little bit about it when we had our little format call, is, man, the speed. Speed is huge for Valentina. And I just think that's going to be the problem that Laura Murphy's going to face. I agree. She's on the win streak. She's as tough as they come. She's got confidence in herself. I just don't know if she's going to be fast enough, but that's what we're going to find out on Saturday. So for me, that's what really sets them apart. Toughness, wanting it, that's all well and good, but hopefully she can find a way to counter and match that speed of Shevchenko.
Yeah, Paul. I mean, and that goes hand in hand with what I was going to say next. You know, when you talk about Valentina Shevchenko, her specialties are striking, obviously. I will go out on a limb and say, and I will stand by this, Valentina Shevchenko is the greatest female striker in women's combat sports. And I say that against the boxers, the kickboxers, the MMA specialists alike. Sorry. I just think that she is that great of a striker. I mean, and we've seen her pick people apart. We've seen her get devastating knockouts. The speed is there. The timing is there. The precision, the defense, the hand placement, the balance in her stance, which to me, outside of the speed factor, her balance is tremendous. I mean, she has this ability to throw spinning attacks and just maintain such a good base. And with all that being said, I say that is the X factor. And for me, in any Valentina Shevchenko fight, that will always be the X factor, no matter who she fights, is her technical prowess on the feet and how great of a striker she is. That is so hard to deal with. That's my X factor for sure.
Yeah, that and the ice water that runs through her veins. But time for a prediction. Who you got? I think I know at this point based on our conversation, right? It's hard to lean against, but say it out loud.
Oh, I mean, the spy from Russia.
Yeah.
Freaking Valentina Shevchenko. Kyrgyzstan. Look, she's tremendous. She's elite. Like I said, it's going to take a shock the world type of performance for somebody to beat this woman. And this isn't me discrediting any of her past, present, or future opponents. It's nothing like that. It's just, I'm sure these females know what they're up against when you're fighting Valentina Shevchenko. That's what it's going to take. You're going to have to shock the world to beat that woman. Yeah. But it's kind of a no-brainer for me at this point. Valentina Shevchenko, I think she wins this fight.
Yeah. But like you said, we could be talking about this next week and we could be talking about that performance. So that's what's great about mixed martial arts is you never know. So you never count anybody out. And Lauren Murphy, she's going to have all the confidence in the world that she is the one to go out there and do it. But 17 years since the first time these guys met in another featured bout, a 5-rounder at that, even though it's not a title fight. We've got Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler throwing down again. 17 years later, these guys get to go back. And we finally have the older brother, Nick Diaz, stepping back into the octagon. And I think this, Michael, is the fight that a lot of diehard fans are looking forward to, even more so than probably those two title fights.
Well, I mean, look, and the funny thing is, Paul, is a funnier way to put this 17 years since they fought. A funnier way to put it in perspective is it's been 209 months.
That's crazy.
I mean, that is the MMA gods. Like that is them showing that the MMA gods are the reason that this fight is happening. Yeah. This is so great. Look, first and foremost, people need to understand a lot of people haven't been exposed to Nick Diaz. I mean, we're talking, he hasn't fought since Anderson Silva. That was years ago. We're talking 5-6 years. A lot of people haven't been exposed to Nick Diaz. They don't know that this is the guy that started the Stockton 209 movement. There's a reason why they call it the Nick Diaz Army. It's so tremendous to have Nick back because he's a guy that really he started the Stockton bad boy thing. And the fans alike, you bring Nate Diaz in the equation, and a lot of people know. I mean, Nate Diaz is a superstar. He's a household name. People have been exposed to that through Nate Diaz, but even Nate will say it. The Nick is the guy that started this whole thing. He's the first Stockton guy to make it in the UFC and bring that bad boy attitude, and he can fight. I mean, if you haven't, for all the fans watching this right now, if you haven't seen Nick Diaz's fights in Strikeforce, do yourself a favor, get on UFC Fight Pass, go back and watch the Paul Daly fight. It's one of the craziest fights you will ever see. And you'll get to see what Nick Diaz is capable of when he is inside the octagon. So I'm really excited to have him back. And I'm not even giving shine to the man on the other side of the Coco main event. You got Robbie Lawler, one of the most dominant welterweight champions we've had in the UFC, one of the most violent ones. His rematch with Rory McDonald is one of the it is in my top 3 greatest fights of all time. you can't make this fight could be very violent, and it's going to be a 5-rounder. So it's just such a blessing to me. I interpret it as a blessing to have this fight again, because it's something that we've talked about for years amongst the hardcore MMA fans, and we're getting it on Saturday at UFC 266. Amazing fight.
Yeah, it really does feel a little bit like Christmas comes early. I get to go out there to Vegas in a couple days, and I get to call a Nick Diaz fight where, 6 years or so since he's been in there, it didn't seem like that was something that I was ever going to realistically get to do. And I'm excited. I watched the countdown the other day, and he seems in a good place. He seems like he's been training. He's fit. I've been following him on Instagram too. He's been riding his bike. He's been hitting tracks, swimming. He's in the gym doing jiu-jitsu and boxing and doing all his normal MMA training. So I think, talking of X factors, I think the big one here is going to be just how fresh and fit is Nick Diaz going to be, because Robbie Lawler has been in there in battles with people, been in the trenches, not looking himself as of recent, even though he stayed relevant over the course of all this time since we've seen Nick Diaz last. He's had some big fights. He's aged in front of us in the octagon, where we don't know if Nick Diaz has. He looked fresh to me in those interviews. He seemed clear-eyed. He doesn't seem as, hating on the man a little bit as he usually is. He doesn't seem as pissed off. He seems like he's truly amped and excited to show the world, you must have forgot who Nick Diaz is. You've been watching my younger brother for so long, and now he wants to step in and prove something. So I think just that fitness level and that freshness that Nick Diaz might be able to bring to the table, I think that could be the X factor in this fight.
Paul, I honestly, I have to agree with you. I wish I had something else to say to add to this fight, but that's exactly where my thought process is at, is the freshness of Nick Diaz. And it's just the body's fresh, the brain's fresh. Those guys train really hard. There's a lot of boxing sparring involved. And Paul, as well as I do, when it comes to training, boxing sparring is probably the most taxing on the most important part of your body. And you took a break from it. He took the break that he needed. He got back to training. He's fresh. He's motivated. And you are right, Paul. When you listen to him talk, he seems like he's in so much of a better place. Like you said, not hating on the man as much. You can tell he's speaking well. His answers are clear. I think we're going to get the best version of Nick Diaz we've seen in a long time. And it's a really exciting thing. I mean, just, outside of the X factor, me letting my inner fanboy go out a little bit, is imagine the potential of having a Nick and Nate Diaz card. Both brothers in the same card. So many things that can be done now that he's back. But I do think that him being fresh, I think that is the biggest X factor in this fight.
Yeah. And how about a prediction, Michael?
I'm a Diaz guy. I'm a Diaz guy, and we've been giving so much shine to Nick Diaz over the course of us talking about this great Coco main event. But let's not forget, he's fighting Robbie Lawler. I mean, Robbie, this is a fight where, Robbie as of late, has been put up against guys that are kind of going after the wrestling and not really wanting to fight a Robbie Lawler type of fight, which we all know what a Robbie Lawler type of fight is. Let's stand in the center of that octagon and let's play hit for hit. He's a tough guy. He likes a good tough scrap. He's got a perfect dance partner. I don't think that there's not one guy in this fight that I think is a clear-cut winner. I think it's going to be fairly even, but my bias goes to Nick Diaz. I've been a fan of the Diaz brothers for a long time, and Nick is a good friend of mine. So, Nick Diaz all the way. Stocked at 209. Let's go.
209. 209 months since the day they first fought. They're running it back. I can't wait for that one. But I got to also talk about, there's a fight on the prelim. Shamil Abdurakhimov versus a guy from Philadelphia who's been absolutely tearing it up in the heavyweight division, Chris Daukaus. Another brother pair here in the UFC. And I got to give a shout out to these Philly guys. And we have the same strength and conditioning coach. These guys work their butts off. Chris is also a Philadelphia police officer and still manages to be a top 15 UFC heavyweight. And he's shown lightning fast hands. Chris is one of those guys. He's not going to come in there 65 pounds, cutting from 300 and some pounds. He relies on his speed and athleticism in there. Still a big enough guy, but I think this is a really good fight for him on a really good card to showcase himself. And in the heavyweight division, as we know, Michael, this is one of those fights where if he goes out there, gets another KO or another stoppage on his UFC resume, I think we're going to see Chris Daukaus potentially be fighting a much higher ranked opponent and put himself in the mix. This is that fight really lines up nicely for him to go and make a big call out after this one, but he's got to get through Shamil first.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Paul, it's just 3 KOs at heavyweight can really propel you to the top of the heap. Yeah. And historically, the heavyweight division has always been just a lot of mainstay staples that just kind of stay within that top 5. It takes 3 KOs in a row to break into that upper echelon of heavyweight fighters. And look, Daukaus can do it, man. He's tough. He's fast. Really enjoy watching his fights. And, let's give those Philly boys some credit. Boys from Philly can fight. Hey, make no mistake. I'm about to find out on November 20th. But look, the prelim I'm looking forward to, Merab Dvalishvili, the Machina. Merab Dvalishvili versus Magic Marlon Moraes.
Great fight.
Someone that you're very familiar with, Paul. You're talking this striker versus grappler through and through. But when we've seen what Marlon Moraes can do. That left high kick is so dangerous. The way he knocked out Jimmy Rivera, took it to Aljamain Sterling, who's Merab's teammate. He just has the power to shut your lights off. And when you look at Merab, he has shades of Khabib Nurmagomedov. You see the way he fights, the relentless wrestling pressure. He doesn't just hold you down. He beats you up, lots of ground and pound, submission attacks, and he's rounding off his game as well on the feet. I think that this fight steals the show. In my opinion, I think that something very special is going to happen in this fight. I think one of these guys is going to get a performance of the night bonus, or it's going to be fight of the night. I just think that this fight has the makings to be something very special. And that's the fight I'm looking forward to most. I think Merab has the ability to give a lot of guys at 135 pounds a lot of problems. And Paul, you can attest to how good Marlon Moraes is. Just tell me about your experiences and what he possesses from your time training with him.
Man, sparred him many, many times, grappled him. It's just so physically strong. So that's what's going to be interesting to this one. This is a big step up for Merab. This is what he wanted, and this is what he deserves. Let me start with that. But this is a big step up, and Marlon has faced the best guys that there is in this division, and he hits like a truck. The guy does not hit like 135 pounds. He hits like 155 pounds for sure. So if Merab can weather that storm early, I think this becomes a real interesting fight come round 2. I think round 1 is going to be real scary and everybody's going to be on the edge of their seat because we know how Merab fights. He fights like a wild man. He gets in there. He throws crazy stuff that can put you down. And Marlon is going to be trying to take your head off. So that first, minute or 2 is going to be chaos, I believe, in that particular fight. And I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. Just great fights all the way across the board. You got Cynthia Calvillo fighting Jessica Andrade. there's so many good fights on this card. Rosenstrike versus Blades. It just look at that. We haven't even mentioned those fights, and this card's going to be tremendous. I'm looking forward to it. This has the potential. Champions will be cemented. Maybe some new contenders coming up the line. I really like the layers to this card, and there's so many a lot of these fights have so much meaning. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they play.
And we haven't even talked about Anthony Smith's fight against Ryan Spann last week. We've been covering that's how stacked 266 is. We got to take a step back real quick. We got to at least just talk about this because we've worked with Anthony Smith. We know him really well. And we know that he's a cool, calm, collected dude, but the man is a freaking veteran. Okay. And he prides himself on that. Right. And I respect Anthony because of that. I've seen this guy fight in CFFC when nobody even counted him in against Timmy Williams for the belt. And he goes in there, beats him twice for that belt because everybody thought, okay, the first one that had to be a fluke. This guy comes in and gets the W. Anthony comes in, does it even in more impressive fashion, gets himself back in the UFC, and it's just been on a roller coaster ever since. But he's the kind of guy where you can't go and disrespect him. And even if Ryan Spann really didn't intend on doing that, it got to Anthony Smith, and we saw some emotion pour out of him at the end of that fight where he's like, where's my beating? Where's this? Where's that? Anthony's one of those guys. You won't hear much out of him until you disrespect him.
And I love the fired up Anthony Smith. I love the post-fight speech. The post-fight speech sounded like this. I'm going to hit my mute. He's back on the mic and he was like, this is who I want next. Look, I got to find the unedited version of that because I love the post-fight speech. I love the passion. And when you talk about Anthony Smith and what he possesses, this is a guy that when you think of a 52 pro fight veteran, you just kind of think of a knucklehead tough guy. you don't imagine it to be a guy in Anthony Smith who's he's so technical, he's so good on the feet, and he's got a brilliant mind for the sport. I mean, Paul, I gotta say, Anthony Smith, and I've said this before, one of my favorite guys to work the desk with. I feel like when I listen to Anthony Smith talk about combat sports and fighting, I feel like I learned something from him. So this is a guy that's been there, done it all, and he's not just tough. He's very smart. He's very intelligent. His level of intellect when it comes to technical skills is very high. And I love the route that he's taken to get himself back in title contention, where he comes up short to Glover Teixeira, comes up short to Rakic, and then he said, screw this. I'm going to go down. I'm going to fight all the tough, young, up-and-coming guys and work my way back up to the top. And he did it. You know, he's fought the Jimmy Crutes. He's fought the Ryan Spanns. He's fought the Devin Clarks. Got a nice 3-fight win streak together. And now, you know, he's asking for Aleksandar Rakic again because he thinks this is the best version of himself. He says, hey, I want Aleksandar Rakic. And before you know it, Rakic is right on top of it. He hits the tweet button right away and says, all right, let's do it in December. And Anthony Smith, what a great line. Well, Merry Christmas to me. So, you know, potentially, unofficially, we could see Anthony Smith fighting Rakic in December. And I'm here for it, man. I'm here. I'm a big Anthony Smith fan, and I'm ready to see him go out there and test himself against the guys at the top of the heap and potentially get himself back in a title fight.
Yeah, that's the fight to do it. I love that fight. And I think, you know, that first time around, I'm not taking absolutely anything against Aleksandar Rakic. He's a scary individual. But I don't think mentally we saw the strongest version of Anthony Smith in that fight. And I think that's why he's so anxious to potentially get that fight back, because he knows that he can put a better foot forward, that this version of him is the one that can get himself back towards that title fight. So I love that. And I love that when fights just kind of work out and these fighters make it happen for themselves and they make it easy on the matchmakers. And trust me, the matchmakers love that too. These guys are working their butts off trying to figure out the best fights, rankings and all this. It's stressful for Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, and even Dana White to get these guys to agree to fight each other. So when that stuff happens for them, when somebody says, yeah, let's do this, and the guy in the octagon says, yeah, let's go, that fight will happen.
Hey, and you know what's cool too, Paul, is, you know, as well as I do, you've been fortunate enough to get to rematch somebody that you've come up short with in the octagon. You got to go run it back with Edson Barboza.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do. The UFC, unless it's a barn burner title fight,
yeah,
it's not easy to get a rematch in the UFC, and not only to get the UFC to sign off on it, but to get the guy that beat you to say yes, because he's, you know, I'll be honest, man, if I go out and beat somebody and I beat him pretty handedly, Rakic really had his way with Anthony that fight. And I say that with all respect. Even Anthony knows that. That's why he wants to fight back. To get the guy to beat you to be like, yeah, cool, let's do it again. Like, good on Anthony Smith and good on Rakic. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, another fight that to me, a lot of crazy things going on in this fight, but the Devin Clark, Ion Cutelaba fight. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the picture on the internet, I mean, Cutelaba knocked Devin Clark's 3 bottom teeth in. And busted him up. He required a lot of surgery. It was crazy. Yeah, broke his jaw down low. If you got, it's all over the internet. You got to see it. But Paul, I mean, what are your thoughts on that performance?
Well, Cutelaba is an absolute machine and a maniac in there, right? But he was much more refined in this performance, and to be able to look as good as he did against somebody as tough as Devin Clark, who showed his grit and was able to even come off that stool into the third round and then win it. Is impressive. You got to give a shout out to Devin Clark for fighting through that. He was showing his dad in his corner the jaw and his teeth, and everybody's like, well, what do you think? You know, you're the one fighting there. If was the doctor in the corner? Because I feel like if a doctor had seen that jaw and then they would have called it broken, they'd have called it. Because for anybody at home, it's not the teeth that broke, guys. It's the gum line underneath here that caved in. So it breaks down at your jaw. And I was following some of the doctors, the guy, you know, these MMA doctors are pretty awesome to follow on YouTube or Instagram, and they kind of break it down and how dangerous that one is, because that could have detached and went down the throat of Devin Clark at some point. So, but Cutelaba, the way he performed against Devin Clark, if that version can continue to improve and come out looking like that and being just a little bit more tame and calculated in his approach, dangerous dude.
Yeah, I mean, Cutelaba, you know, he moves his camp out to Las Vegas, training with Derek Nixick, training with a huge stable of killers at Extreme Couture. But that's not even what made Ion look so good in this fight. Is, to me, it was his time with Bo Sandoval. And he even said he's been at the PI. They've been addressing the gas tank issues because, look, he's like a Marlon Moraes. That first round is just scary. And if you can weather the storm and take this fight into the later minutes, in the later rounds, he becomes a little more susceptible, to losing, So I think that Cutelaba moved his camp out to Las Vegas to address those issues because he's got the technical skills. We saw him taking down Devin Clark, who's a junior college national champion. I mean, he was showing his striking, he was showing his wrestling, and more importantly, he's showing that he's got a gas tank. And and there's another fight that stood out to me, Paul, back in your old division, the lightweight division, Arman Tsarukyan going out there and putting it on Christos Giagos in the first round. Like, look, this is the guy in Arman Tsarukyan that when he made his UFC debut, it was on short notice against Islam Makhachev, and they had fight of the night. I mean, nobody counted this young man in, and he's only 24 years old. He's making his debut against Islam, the guy that's supposed to be the heir to the throne to Khabib Nurmagomedov. He goes out there and goes, it was just a grappling scramble fest, but they had fight of the night. It's rare when somebody can come up short in a fight and still make waves. Like, wow, this guy really could be something special, Paul. I mean, what did you see from Arman Tsarukyan that makes him so dangerous in that Christos Giagos fight?
I see a top 5 contender in the UFC in the future is what I see in Arman Tsarukyan. And I remember when I was doing the little bit of research, when I called his debut against Islam, I counted him out. I was like, this guy's really good, but it's not going to show up when he fights Islam. And then the whole fight, I just couldn't believe how good he looked. And I was like, I can't wait to see this kid fight again. And then he's just improved. His striking becomes more and more dangerous every time we see him. I truly think that the lightweight division with some of these up and comers, there's a lot of them. It's not just Arman. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to start mentioning names because I'll forget some, but the striker, you know who I'm talking about. Your manager has him.
Fiziev.
I mean, between the two of those guys alone, and then Islam, who's killing it. I mean, we're going to see some absolute madness happening soon at 155 pounds. And one thing I want to give a shout out to Dan Hooker, who Arman wants next after his call out. But Dan says, listen, these are the guys he wants. He knows, speaking of what you said, similar to what Anthony Smith did, it's a little bit more dangerous, I think, in this case. But he wants to get respect back on his name. He's willing to take on these up and coming challengers at 155 pounds.
Yeah, it was it's a crazy division. When we see those rankings, it just looks very cultured. Lots of different flags, lots of different walks of the earth. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a fan of the lightweight division. It's an exciting time to be a lightweight fighter, and we might even see Dan Hooker fighting Arman, because I think Arman could potentially still be in Las Vegas waiting to see if the fight with Nasser Akras happens this weekend. But look, before we move on, got to give a shout out to Nate Maness for the gutsy performance, the come from behind victory after getting dropped in the first round. Looked phenomenal, as well as Joaquin Buckley. I mean, has another stellar knockout, has a fire post-fight speech, almost picking on our boy Mike Bisping, talking about flaming him. Oh, man, there was a lot of good fights, Paul, but those two guys particularly deserve a little shine, man. They had some great performances, great post-fight speeches, just good stuff all the way around.
Yeah, really good card. And now we're going to have a little more fun this week. Normally, we will get back to fan questions. Obviously, you guys can always, remember, hashtag UFC Roundup. Give us your questions. We will try to get them on the show and make them funny, guys. We don't like to take ourselves too seriously, as we know. First, we're going to do Would You Rather today. These are always fun. First one, Michael. Would you rather have teeth like Devin Clark after that last fight, or a head like Joanna Jędrzejczyk when she had the giant helmet hematoma?
I'm like, this is a hard one to answer, Paul, because I got a fight coming up and I don't want to jinx myself. So I think that, I think I might take the teeth, because my teeth are kind of jacked as it is. So like, if it did happen, then I'd have an excuse to like get them fixed. Otherwise, my modeling career is not taking off anytime soon. So I'm not really in a rush to fix my teeth. But if that happened, maybe I would do it. And plus, I worry if I got the Joanna Jędrzejczyk forehead, I'm worried that my nose is big enough. I'm worried it would flush down into my nose and I'd look like a toucan, an Italian toucan.
Well, you're crazy. I'm definitely taking the hematoma. A little bit of ice, a couple of days, and I'm just a bruised face. But them teeth, man, that's going to take a while. Second question, would you rather have Dan Hooker's travel schedule? Let me give you a little background story here. Obviously, Dan I don't even know if he has left New Zealand yet. He's had visa issues. It's been a nightmare for him. He's had to go on social media to try to expedite the process, to even get a meeting with the people to get his passport back, to get the visa in it so that he can even leave for this fight. But he stayed committed. He's got his visa. I don't know when he's on his way, but he basically lands the day before the weigh-ins, I think, on Thursday. So I don't know when he leaves, maybe Wednesday, New Zealand time, or maybe it's Thursday, arrives Thursday. But it's chaos. Or be in Vegas, have plenty of time to prepare for the fight, but you're staying above a 24/7 rave, Michael.
Oh, well, Paul, this one's easy for me. Look, I'm a man of preparation. I'm not showing up the day before a fight. Heck no. And if I'm staying above a 24/7 rave, I'm not just going to stay above it. I'll probably go knock on the door and be like, hey, let me come in and get my unts on. You know what I'm saying? I'd way rather do that than show up. I mean, we both hate weight cutting. So I can't, Dan Hooker, he's not the smallest lightweight in the world. And you're going to be retaining water, so much different stuff. I'd rather make something annoying fun than have something really important be more stressful.
Yeah, I that is a tough one. And I'm going to go against you here. I'm going to be crazy and say, now I probably wouldn't make weight, but I would do the Dan Hooker schedule, because I'd beg the UFC, listen, you got to make sure I fly business class because of all this headache, or just give your whole damn purse up, fly business class back, sleep as much as you can, chug all the water in the world to keep that pee coming in and out of you, peeing, drinking water. Don't eat any salt. Don't do anything. As soon as you get off the plane, have your team throw your ass right in the bathtub or sauna, and hopefully you make weight. Because that rave, I'm fighting somebody downstairs if I'm staying above 24/7 rave. That's guaranteed.
Well, you're Paul Felder. You fight main events on 5 days notice. So it really comes as no surprise that that's the one.
We could fight on the airplane if we had to. We could fight on the airplane.
You'll fight him on the plane. Screw it. Just meet me at McCarran Airport. We'll fight at the baggage claim.
No weight cuts needed. Number 3, and this is, very well timed. Would you rather fight Joseph Benavidez, who, big shout out to Joe Benavidez, who recently retired, or Carlos Condit? Big shout out to the natural born killer, Carlos Condit, who just retired, in their primes. Now, let's pretend no weight class exists. You're in their weight class, in their prime. Who you rather fight?
I'd probably take Carlos Condit, and I know that I've already fought him before. But it's, for one, Joseph Benavidez, very close friend of mine. I consider him to be a mentor. He was my coach on Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want to say it, but to be able to fight Carlos, look, Carlos is still dangerous. He was around my age when I fought him, 33, 34 years old. Definitely. I would have liked to fight the WEC Carlos Condit. That was the Carlos Condit I thought about that kept me up at night a lot. So I would run it back with Carlos, and I say that with a ton of respect as well. Tremendous fighter, both guys. I mean, two guys that were mainstays of the WEC. It's unfortunate to see him move along from the sport, Paul, but two tremendous fighters. Who would you pick?
Man, it's tough, but I think I got to agree with you, and it's just because we're closer to this weight class, right? So we've been watching Carlos. I've sparred Carlos. He's a buddy. I consider him, somebody I respect and like. I don't want to call him best friends. I don't live out in New Mexico or anything like that. But whenever I see him, I love to have a good chat with Carlos, and I've had a lot of good training sessions with him. But I agree. Prime, ripping it up, WEC, maybe beginning a UFC career, to go in there against the natural born killer. That means you're doing something right, first of all, back then, to be fighting him in his prime, because he was fighting the big names and he was making big moves. So same with Joe Benavidez. But just for some reason, since I was a lightweight / welterweight, it's easier for me to picture that fight. And I think that would just be insane. So I agree. Natural born killer.
Chaos. Pure chaos. Spinning attacks. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Paul. That was the fight I've probably been most nervous for in my life, because I was such a fan of Carlos.
Yeah.
That I just know what he's capable of. And I just had the worst visions of, like, Thiago Alves looking like Picasso and just
Yeah.
getting diced up. And yeah, it was.
All right. The fourth one is, would you rather fight an aged Evander Holyfield or an aged Tito Ortiz?
I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. I think Tito's kind of a knucklehead. I'd rather fight Tito Ortiz. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer for me.
Me too. I don't want to punch Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, and plus, it's like, are they the same age or are they the age they are now? Because I'm going to fight the younger guy. I mean, Evander Holyfield, shout out to the real deal Holyfield, one of the most dominant heavyweight champions we've had in boxing. But he has no business fighting anybody.
Nah, he's a legend. Stay a legend, Evander. Stay a freaking legend. You know, some of these guys can't just stay a legend. That's what drives me nuts. Speaking of legends, our fifth would you rather attend, and this actually recently happened. These two gentlemen were at a Cowboys, and who was it, Richie? Cowboys Chargers, right?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Game. Would you rather attend an NFL game with Mr. Conor McGregor or Mr. Sean O'Malley?
That one's an easy pick for me. I'm going to take Sean O'Malley. He's a Montana guy. He's just on the other side of the panhandle for me, and I've known Sean for a long time.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. I think I'd much rather go to the game with Sean O'Malley. What about you, Paul?
I'm going to surprise you with this one, Michael, and I'm going to say Conor McGregor, and I'm going to say it for this reason, okay? I'd like to sit and have a chat, not tweet, not talk about any of what happened to him in his fights and obviously my job is to talk about these things. I'm going to say things. People are going to get upset. People are going to get pissed off. Jokes will be made. He's made jokes on me, blah, blah, blah. But if it was just me and him having a drink, I'd like to see what that's like. Like, what do you like if we're just right here, right now, and there's no cameras, there's no nothing. There would be cameras, but at a game where people are having fun. So I'd like to give the opportunity to Conor McGregor if I can go share a game with him and hash it out.
Yeah, well, I know you're talking about potentially hypothetically sitting down with him and hashing things out, Paul. But you said something about jokes. Look, I gotta ask my guy Mike Ricci. Let's see the picture of Mr. McGregor and O'Malley, and let's look at Paul Felder's comment.
Now, listen, maybe they are. Maybe they are, Michael. You don't know that. Sean looks like he's getting taught a lesson. Let's look at body language here. Arms are crossed. Conor's free. Conor's loose. Conor is in control of this conversation right now. But yeah, listen, I made a joke. I thought that was fun. Come on, that's funny.
I darn near cried laughing when I saw it because I saw it by chance. I'm just scrolling through
the likes already. We were talking about the likes.
It's at 8,900 right now. I checked before we started recording the show, but I mean,
listen,
and I like the capital D on defense. Like you really you emphasize the cap and then you emphasize the defense. Like it's like
super
capital
defense. Shout out to super defense. Listen, that's it for our show this week, guys. It was a joke to all the people that will be inboxing me and Michael later today. Hopefully you have a sense of humor. Hopefully those guys have a sense of humor. I have respect for both of them, kind of. But listen, we're going to be back in a week. We're going to be together. We've been gone for a while. So next Tuesday, we'll be back to recap this and looking forward as usual. Please post your questions, # UFC Roundup. Guys, that's it. I'm Michael Chiesa. I'm Paul Felder. He's Michael Chiesa. We'll see you in a week. 266 this Saturday night. Tune in. Buy that pay-per-view, guys.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. Enjoy the show.